And we're live.
So he's been out for 2 years. So leave him the F alone. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
Seriously?
Kyrie's right. Like he has been out for 2 years, to be fair. I don't think we can expect him to come back because, yeah.
We're, we're not going to analyze it. He's been out for 2 years, and that was his choice. It could be a Jenner thing, or a Kardashian thing. Okay, you know what I mean. You guys know what I'm talking about. They can ruin a career. We all know. But anyway, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now, just know that you are locked in until the point with
Skip.
and the king. You guys know what to do. Go down there, click subscribe, click like, leave us some comments. We love your comments. You guys are absolutely amazing. You guys can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching us. And if not, you're bootlegging and you owe us some money. And speaking of the money, we would like to give a shout out to our sponsor, WeDoLaundry.ca. You guys go get at them. They come to your door. They pick up your clothing. They wash, they fold, and they bring it right back to you. You ain't got nothing to worry about. So, and we
And
also
don't
would,
don't forget the sponsor code, to the point.
yeah, to the point for 5% off.
Yeah.
And that would be amazing for you guys. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the service. And thank you guys for enjoying our fantastic guests, especially right there, our man from the Toronto Star, Jas Grewal. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. Just to sort of, go off your last point about Kyrie telling everybody to chill out about Ben Simmons. During the game, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was a point where Ben Simmons got, I don't know, I don't remember if it was a pass or a rebound, and he was right in front of the net, and Kyrie's like, Ben, shoot it. It's hilarious because Giannis was in there waiting for him. You got Drew Holiday, who's an all NBA defender, and then you had Brooke Lopez looming around. So it was just funny that Kyrie screamed at him to shoot the ball when there's like 7 footers surrounding him. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
Skip, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Just went for a run, got the juices flowing, so we're gonna have a good
Yeah, we don't,
episode.
we don't. Thank God, there's no smell vision. Um, thank God for that. But guys, let's get into this. So the Toronto Raptors are currently, as of this recording, three, 3-2. Um, Now what we've seen, like with the absence of Scotty Barnes and the way the other players have played, but we did hear something earlier in the season, before the season even started. Is Jas? I'm going to throw this to you. Is Pascal Siakam a top 5 player, like he said he would be? We have friends of the show that said no, but I want to hear your opinion.
Okay, so as of right now, yeah, 100% he's playing like a top five player. I mean, he's averaging 25, 9, and 8. He's getting to the line 7 times a game, 36% on 5 threes. By the end of the season, I'm just going to list off a few players who I think will, are definitely in contention for top five. I mean, you got your solidified guys in Giannis, Jokic, KD, and then and you can even throw Luka in there as well. But then you got Ja Morant, Jason Tatum, both the guys who are number 1 and 2 in points per game right now. Still only 4 games for them. And then you got Steph as well. So I think Pascal can really carve himself a role in that 8 to 10 spot. And if he continues on this trajectory, and it does look sustainable, honestly, just the way it doesn't look forced, everything looks organic. I just think he's become such a patient decision maker. Before he used to rush into things. Now he's seen plays 2 or 3 steps ahead. Inviting the double team, kicking it out to Gary, trusting his teammates to make that extra pass to the corner. I just think the level of maturity is really shining through right now for Pascal, and that's why he's reaping the benefits of his game.
Skip, thank you, thank you, Jas. Skip, I gotta ask you basically the same question, but from from what you've seen from Pascal these last 5 games, where do you think he stands in the top 5? Like, do you have a set of players ahead of him, and where do you think he stands?
So going into the season, when he first made that comment, we actually came on the show and we talked about it, and I sort of laughed it off. Maybe not laughed it off, but I said, he should be happy in the top 15. Like he's a very solid player, but he's not at the same level as these really elite MVP candidates like your Jokic's, your Embiid's, your Giannis's. I will say, I think I was underestimating him a little bit in that conversation. I think he's really come out super forcefully this year. He's shown that he can do everything on the basketball court, right? He can pass, he can rebound, he can play good defense, he can score, he can shoot the three. He's really a truly 5-dimensional player. So I think absolutely, I think based on what he's done so far, there's a lot of room for him to actually get in that conversation. Whether he's there, I don't necessarily think he's there just yet. You look at, so back in the day, back when Pascal first came into the league, I used to say his comp was Russell Westbrook, when he was this super athletic freak who would just drive, run the floor, wasn't really much of a shooting threat, just really relied on his athleticism to score. I always thought he kind of reminded me of Westbrook. Now, looking at what Westbrook is now and what...
Not a winner.
Did I just say Westbrook? I think I did. Looking at what Westbrook is now, I mean, that's not a very flattering comparison. But you look at Pascal's stat line over the first 5 games of the season, and you're starting to see that sort of 20-point triple-double that seems really within his grasp on a regular basis, that kind of just being able to do everything out there as, a somewhat ball-dominant player. I don't even say he's that ball-dominant, but he's a guy who has the ball in his hands a lot. Now, whether he can be... Oh, I lost my point. But I think he's I think he's very good, and I think it's going to be tough for him to sustain that level to the point where he can be top 5. If you actually look at some of the advanced metrics, this is what I was trying to get back to. Sorry. If you actually look at some of the advanced metrics, he's actually behind Fred VanVleet in a bunch of these sort of weird categories, like offensive box plus minus. Win shares, VanVleet's ahead of him. Defensive win shares, VanVleet's ahead of him. So, which I think, I don't necessarily buy that. I think if you watch the games, the impact that Pascal is having is undeniably more than what VanVleet is having. VanVleet's just sort of excelling in his role. But I think to really be that next level player, you got to blow those numbers out of the water. And I don't think he's quite there yet, but he's knocking on the door. And we can talk about it a little more, but I think like you talk about top 5, you kind of went through your top 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, you look at the guys who are kind of in that 11 to 15 range. You're talking about guys who are 34, 35, injury prone, guys like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron James, Damian Lillard. These guys are past their prime. Pascal's just entering his prime right now. So I think absolutely he can be top 10. I think top 5 is going to require a really special season from him, and we'll see if he's got it in him.
Guys, do you mind if thank you, Skip. Do you guys mind if I weigh in here?
Go for it.
To your show, man.
Let me tell you something about Pascal Siakam. I don't have the numbers up right in front of me. I didn't even bother to look them up because there's no need to. Okay? Pascal is definitely a top 5 player in this league. I might not say top 5, maybe top 10, right? But currently, right? And that shows really something for what Masai, the genius Ujiri, has seen within some of these players that he has drafted and he has brought to the Toronto Raptors, right? Like, we've seen Pascal ball out the last 5 games. Guys, come on. We can't deny that, right? Nobody out there can deny that. Like, seriously. This guy's been almost averaging a triple-double. Almost. Not quite correctly. But the reason I have to say is Pascal has been balling out because of the other players on the squad, our positionless basketball team. Other teams do not know how to correctly defend the Toronto Raptors. Like, even if I were to draw it up on a clipboard, I wouldn't even be able to figure it out, right? Just based on the way they're playing.
I don't agree with that, by the way, but go on.
Shut up. There's multiple players that on the squad that are opening it up. Skip, this is why I'm going to get at you, because we did talk about this on our 3-point shooting episode. Okay. If the other players can make the shots, it opens up lanes. It opens up doors for the other player. Now, with the other players, like we've seen just recently, we've seen Precious shine out. We've seen Malachi shine out. We've seen Scotty shine out. We've seen Freddie. No. Talking about Freddie, okay? We've seen Freddie go to a limited role, shine out as well. We've seen OG. We've seen Boucher when he came back. We've seen a lot of this from multiple players. We saw Christian Koloko step up. Now, guys, I got to ask you, I'm going to start with you, Jas, is the multiple players that the Raptors have on reserve that they can utilize, who do you see coming up that is helping Siakam?
Do you mean reserves or just other rotation players? So, guys,
anybody. Let's get into the rotation because that rotation is so deep.
Yeah.
Because wait, hold on. Sorry to cut you off, Jas, but I've been saying this for 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bench Mob 2.0 if it's utilized. Jas?
Like the young guns back in the day. I mean, the one guy who's shining through right now is Gary Trent. You know, he's averaging 20 points on 40% shooting from three on 10 attempts. That's ridiculous. It's obviously, I don't think it's sustainable for the whole season, but like the way he's shooting right now. One thing about Gary is, and I find that a lot of people might get frustrated with his game because, you know, he's a, you know, quote unquote black hole on offense. Not much of a playmaker, doesn't rebound. Feisty defender. He's averaging like 2.8 steals a game, I think.
What was the last game? He got 27 points, 0 boards, rebounds, 0 assists.
Yeah, and honestly, that's his role. That's what you want him to do when he comes into the. He's a what do they call him? A contract shooter, whatever you call them. He comes in and knocks down jump shots. So
mercenary.
He's been fantastic. You know, OG as well. You know, he's had his up and downs, but you can always count on him in like the end of the games. You know, knock down those big threes. I think he's going to start. I mean, he's got to get his foul rate down. He's averaging like 4 fouls a game. Him and Koloko, they just got to be less aggressive on that end. And honestly, half the time, it almost feels like defenders are flopping. Like Harden, you know, just bumps into and starts flailing. So he's just got to be more.
God, don't even get me started on Harden. But go on.
Yeah, and then you know, Scotty, he's averaging like 14.8, but I think his playmaking has taken another level. Head is always up.
My goodness, yes.
Him and Pascal just complement each other so well. And like there's so many instances where I think players are starting to understand where they're supposed to be on the court when Pascal has the ball. Like in the first quarter, you know, Pascal had a line drive on PJ Tucker, and Embiid came for the help and kicked it out to Scotty to that short corner three, or not the short corner, but it was in between the corner and the top. And he knocked down that three. And then there was another play where he drove, I think it was the end of the third, he drove on Daniel House and spun to the middle, and Niang came for the help, and I believe there was another defender behind him as well, and he knew right away to kick it out to the top, and Gary was wide open for threes. So as soon as, you know, you start knocking down those shots, you hit it on the head, King. You mentioned that things open up. It does. I felt like last year during the half court, it got really mucky. You know, it was really like congested. Whereas now, again, small sample size, but you're seeing the floor open up a lot more. You know, if Scotty can keep shooting 36% from three, albeit on 2 threes a game, if OG gets his volume up and starts shooting like a consistent amount on a good percentage, I think that Chris Boucher knocking down threes like that, it just opens the whole game up, and it's going to lead to Pascal averaging a triple-double or damn near it by the end of the year. And then, Van Vliet, he's been phenomenal from three. I think he's shooting like 48% from three, which is ridiculous. Yeah, so if guys are making shots, everybody
got them
great.
Steph numbers.
Yeah, he's got he's definitely, and he's averaging 8 assists a game, playing amazing defense. I don't know if you've seen all the swipes and steals and
stocks. He leads the league in stocks.
Yeah, that swipe on Embiid.
And steals. Yeah. That was a nice. Right. But he leads the league in steals. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then I think Trent is at so Trent's at 2.8 steals, same with Van Vliet, and OG's at 2. So this team is just like stealing money from people's pockets and taking advantage in the transition. So I think that's really good. Offense, obviously the half-court defense still needs improvement, but so it's a team effort right now, as cliche as that sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Skip, how do you feel about with the whole squad going around Pascal Siakam? This is the question I wanted to ask you guys. It's basically like the better Pascal becomes, the better the team can become as he recognizes who to give the ball to, right? Skip, do you see Pascal at that point? And which players do you see that can utilize what Pascal is doing?
Well, I think you did hit on the head, Jas, when you were talking about Van Vliet and Trent just going off from three, because that's really how this team is structured. I think there's got to be more people involved in that system. I think the other thing is, I think the Scotty point's really interesting, because I see the vision for this team. I mean, you look over at what LA is trying to build, the Clippers are trying to build with Kawhi and Paul George as these sort of elite two-way players that kind of the whole team is built around. Now, take those two players, put them in their prime, and turn them into elite passers. And that's what Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes, that's the vision of what they could be. This team, if those two guys can be that, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in their prime with better passing, this team is going to be very, very dangerous someday. So that's sort of like the optimal outcome. Short term, I think you're just going to have to see a little bit more from guys. I really, as much as you praise the half court offense, I still think they're getting a lot of their stuff in transition. I think Pascal's bailing them out in a lot of situations because they can't create enough.
And they're hitting shots too. That helps. And
they are hitting shots. You sit there and you say, okay, the Raptors are top 5 in 3-point percentage right now. Great. Is that going to be sustainable for a whole season with the guys that they have in house? Maybe, because Van Vliet's an elite shooter, Trent's a very good shooter, but
quarterback.
Eventually you're going to have to find some of these other guys to step up. Precious going to have to start hitting shots again.
Who else do you see in the rotation, Skip?
Well, I think we should maybe get into that, because so we're talking going into the season. We had these 9 guys, right? And the 9 guys was the 5 starters plus Precious and Boucher coming off the bench. And then we assumed that Porter and Thad Young were going to be in the rotation to flesh it out. So far, that has not been the case at all. Porter has not played a single minute yet. He's out tonight or tomorrow again for personal reasons this time. We don't know when he's going to be back. And I think maybe it's this kind of a reality check where we probably shouldn't expect that many minutes from Otto Porter this year. I think absolutely the priority would be to keep him around, keep him healthy. Maybe we'd have him going into the playoffs as kind of a part-time player. I don't think we can expect him to be there every night as a bench guy. And Thad Young, I mean, I want to know what's going on with Thad Young personally, because...
Oh my God, Skip, you would not shut up about Thad Young.
We brought him in. We brought him in last year. Remember, we gave up a first-round pick for this guy. We know he's past his prime. Know he's a bit of an older player. They give up a first-round pick for this guy. And is he washed? Like 6 months later, is he washed up? Is that what we're supposed to take away from him not playing in 2 games, early in the season?
Or what did we use from him?
I mean, there's
What he's gonna do.
Nick Nurse said today, like he's going to try, he's got to stay ready. He might be getting rotation minutes at some point, but I mean, that's kind of what you say about a guy like Malachi Flynn or something. Like I'm expecting Thad Young to come in here and be a contributor, even if it's in a small role, even if it's only 10 minutes a night. I think they brought him in to have a role on this team, and I'm kind of waiting to see them get back to that. And then beyond those two guys, you could sort of talk. Koloko's obviously been a nice little surprise. They're obviously getting him some run. But Kem Birch has looked solid in preseason. He's gotten a few little
surprise to me.
Spot starts here and there, but like 4 or 5 minutes at a time. Obviously, it's in foul trouble in the Philly game, but I kind of expected him to get a little bit more run, not a ton. I at some point I thought he was out of the rotation completely, but with some of these other guys not playing, it's kind of like, okay, well, now is the time for Kem Birch to step up if he's going to step up. So I think absolutely he could get some more run. I don't know, Jas, I'll throw it over to you before I get any deeper. What do you think about?
Okay, so the Thaddeus Young thing, I already gave you my thoughts about this. I'm not really worried about it. I think Nick saw what he can do in the playoffs, and it's just like, I know what I have in that guy. And he just hasn't required his presence on the court for whatever reason. I think he hit like 1-3 and I don't know if it was a first or second game. I remember him knocking down a corner three, and then after that, he just hasn't really touched the floor. And a lot of that has to do with just Nick wanting to win games. This is what I go back to my earlier point on like a previous podcast with you guys where I mentioned that Nick's going to try to limit Fred and Siakam's minutes. When other teams go on 17-0 runs, like what are you supposed to do? You got to get your starters back on the floor. So it's really tough to spread out those minutes because you're spreading your starters thin. And, right now they're playing at an extremely high level, but 30, 40 games in the year, you're going to have to rely on Thaddeus. You're going to have to rely on Porter. You're going to have to rely on Malachi, Delano, Chris Boucher. Delano. Yeah. So,
I mean, okay, just you'd think that, but we've seen Nick Nurse coach before. That's not how he coaches. He coaches one game to the next game to the next game, and then you look up and it's 6 months into the season and no one's had a rest game. Like it's like so. I don't think logically we could say that. I mean, Nick Nurse can even say that in an interview. Can he actually do it? Can he actually scale back?
But he's gonna have to do that because we saw what happened to Fred VanVleet in the playoffs. He was destroyed. His knees were gone. He's gonna have to manage his minutes throughout it doesn't matter if you sacrifice a few games, and so be it. You can't have Fred missing threes and getting blown by Maxey.
And so and Nurse knows this, but how many minutes did VanVleet play last night? Right? Like
let's find out.
VanVleet's like this.
All right, Fred played 39 minutes yesterday, so he led the team in minutes.
Yeah, I mean exactly.
Yeah, so this is early in the season, but I'm not saying Nick is going to do this.
Brian, you all right over there? Jesus.
I'm very pessimistic towards Nick Nurse in minutes.
Nick Nurse already ran me out. Sorry, shameless plug. Nick Nurse already ran me out.
But what I wanted to get into, I know Brian, you mentioned like the roundtable aspect of this. I wanted to talk about like the Raptors defensive numbers compared to their offensive numbers, their point differential.
Let's get into that. How well has the Raptors defensive side helped them to this plus 500 record that they have currently?
Yeah,
so they lost once to Miami, they lost to Brooklyn. We're all aware of this, but they have bounced back, and we have seen this. Skip and I don't know if you noticed, but on one of our last episodes, we did mention about like Pascal, Freddie, everybody jumping in, getting at the ball on the defensive end. How do you think their defense can withstand them, especially considering that last game where that was like a boxer's mount boat?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, for sure. So the Raptors right now they're fourth in the NBA in points allowed. I think like 105. You got the Suns in third at 104.5. So they're stopping teams. And it's funny enough, when you put pressure on those perimeter players, and they're forced to make those quick passes, there's a few instances in that Philly game where as soon as Joel touched the ball, He got the instant double team, which forced him to swing the ball, and then they swung it to the corner and it went out of bounds. So they panic a lot, and I think that pressure from Gary, Fred, Scotty at the top, even guys like Pascal and Precious, they'll flash to the top and switch because it's a switch heavy team. OG, of course. OG's been really aggressive with his fouls. I love OG. He's their best defender. I just wish he was a bit smarter with how he used his fouls. But it's funny because points per game, the Raptors are 25th in the NBA at 107.8. And I mentioned this earlier to you guys, the 2.7 point differential. The Raptors have played like really strong Eastern Conference teams to start off their NBA season. So this isn't
it's a hellacious first 10 games.
And it's going to be like that.
You know what's interesting though? I'm just looking up their offensive rating and their defensive rating, and they're actually 13th in offense and 14th in defense.
So that's rating.
Yeah, that's rating.
I think going with the raw numbers, points per game, and then like points against or whatever.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm curious why there's such a disparity there. It probably has to do with something about how fast they play.
What's the defensive rating? Sorry,
defensive rating is 14th, and the offensive rating is 13th. But they also play at the slowest pace. I guess that means
the Raptors play at the slowest pace.
I think you know what that is, though. I think that's because they play good defense. Everyone takes a long time on the shot clock. I think that's the only.
But they also force a lot of turnovers.
I know. I don't understand it completely. I think that's a really interesting number.
This is why I stay away from analytics.
Someone smarter than me in the comments explain these numbers to me, because I'm kind of. It was exactly like this last season, and my mind could not wrap my head around it. So
I'm going to explain it to you right now. Do you want to know why it's like that?
Sure.
Why is it?
Because of their transition game.
Yeah, but I still don't. Okay. I'm going to have to do some research.
That wouldn't explain their pace, though. That wouldn't explain why the slow pace.
You get that steal, you go out in the open court, like we saw.
But that's fast pace
against Philly. Like, come on, bro. They crushed them in the transition. Okay. And by the way, I did bring that up on our last episode about them utilizing the transition against Philly.
Yeah, Philly's a very heavy-footed, so they don't move around much.
Yeah, use it and abuse it, baby.
Except for Tyrese.
No, Tyrese is unbelievable, man.
It's like one sprinter on a team of boxers. Like
it's ridiculous.
Okay, guys, we're kind of pressed for time here. So, Jas, do you have any last things to say before we get out of here, my friend?
Well, listen, they play Philadelphia tomorrow. I'm interested in how Doc Glenn Rivers is going to adjust to the Raptors, because if you look at it, Embiid and Maxey got their numbers. They both dropped 30 plus, and then Harden had 18, but he wasn't like terrible or anything, and they still lost. So like you wonder, what the issue was. Obviously, perimeter defense, and then after Pascal would constantly break guys down, little dump offs to Scotty and OG. So I'm interested to see how the Sixers adjust and see how Nick sort of counters that, because that's a great basketball mind coaching the Raptors.
Yeah, I can't wait for that game tonight either. As this post. So, Skip, do you have any last things to say?
I pretty much covered it. I think I'm just going to reiterate my point. I'm going to reiterate my point about I think there's got to be a way for Nick Nurse to cap the starters' minutes at, say, 33 minutes a game. Just roll at the bench. Just suck it up.
No way.
Just suck it up and play, your bench guys. Play 4 or 5 bench guys 10 minutes apiece. Give Precious some extra run. That caps it. But, like, Nick Nurse likes to win. And that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
Especially in this Eastern Conference. Before we head out here?
Yeah.
Skip, you just nailed it. Bench Mob 2.0. Look how many available players there are for the Toronto Raptors. There's no need to.
And you don't even need to play Juancho. Like, forget Juancho.
Bo Cruz, Mr. Hollywood.
Get there with Thad. You can get there with a little more Thad and a little more.
And the Raptors called up Champagne as well, so I'm interested to see how he fits into things.
You know what? Look, that's what I want to see. I want to see the bench flourish and become great within this Raptors organization, because they do have that team. What did Gary Trent say the other night? He did say that our top 5 can take on anybody's top 5.
It's one of the best defensive top 5s in the league, and they also have some really good offensive players too. So they're tough, man.
Let's see this bench flourish. I just hope Nick Nurse, if you're watching, take my words, okay, and start playing your bench. Let them get going. I understand the first 10 games of the season is going to be tough, and you want to go hard. You want to go ham. That's cool, understandable. But throughout the course of the season, start playing your bench. So, before we get out of here, I got one last question for you guys.
Uh-oh.
Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Christian Koloko.
I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
This guy got a start in his 4th NBA game. And he's already gotten thrown out. He's already gotten a start.
He's got ejected. He's got fined. The rite of passage has been crossed by Christian Koloko.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what, guys? It was said here first on this show that he will be drafted at number 33 for the Toronto Raptors. So, guys, let's get out of here. We're pressed for time. Jas, thank you so much for coming on. You're always welcome to be here. I know we all know you're busy at the Toronto Star. You guys go check him out. You'll find out his stuff right there. We definitely appreciate you. We know you're a busy man, bro. We appreciate you, and especially you're busy. You got to get the hell out of here right now to go do something.
No. Just to clarify, I don't write for the Toronto Star. I'm just the editor, on the production.
You're the editor,
side.
Yeah.
So for the newspaper.
Yeah, you're behind the scenes.
Yeah,
right?
You won't find my work in the paper.
Why not?
Thank you for coming on again, Skip. You guys can find him at Dougie J's on Twitter. You guys can find him SimBroder.com, Running the Point on Amazon.ca. You guys can find him on Raptors Republic. Maybe you guys could find him playing pool at some point.
No, maybe.
Yeah, somewhere around there. You guys can find me, King Hussein, on all social media platforms. You guys can find us.
To the Point on YouTube.
On Instagram.
Don't forget Spotify. We're on Spotify and Apple Music as well now. If anyone is interested in listening to the audio podcast, feel free. Look us up. We're not
talk about a shameless plug.
Yeah.
You guys could find us anywhere. So on behalf of myself, Skip, and the one and only Jas Grewal, we would thank you for watching, subscribing, and listening to us and spending your time with us. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
peace.